that exists within all of us. So by allowing some of that space between some of these zones to remain white and pure and open, it's like we acknowledge that there's always space. There's always space to change something. Adding more water. I am worthy and I am enough. How are you guys doing? An hour seems so long.
I loved it, Sophie. It's amazing.
Awesome, thank you. An hour always feels so long until you're in the hour and you go, oh my word, time is running away with me. But I'm sure if we go over an hour, it's absolutely no crisis.
Now, I'm using a whole bunch of different Gideon, and I see you've got primarily like a tealish color going on there. Are you going to introduce other colors, or?
Yes, I am. I'm actually going to switch some now. So I like to start with my present and whatever color and then bring that out into what I like to refer to as the universe. So now when I'm jumping to the past and the future zones, I like to work with contrasting colors. So I've pre-mixed a beautiful coral orange. So I'm going to work on the outside of my circle, my present circle now, and almost ignore any of my lines, not all of them, but mindful that I don't go into my present circle. And I'm going to add a nice dollop of my orange coral color here, and I've added quite a bit of my glaze medium here, so it's more spreadable. It's almost like a gel, I want to call it, but you can see it's not covering anything underneath because the opacity has been reduced quite a bit. And then I'm just using some of the lines, like I'm using some of these lines here now to block this orange, but in other areas I ignore it. So let me add a bit of water and thin this out even more. So it becomes even more see-through. And just quickly rough it out to a point. And maybe now I'm going to bring in some of this fluoro pink and just respect some of the other lines again and ignore some of the other. Again, not trying to cover up anything underneath. I'm really just introducing a thin glaze of color over top of another one. And in a way it's creating a different kind of, a more pinkish coral kind of color. And by now my brush is almost dry, so there's very little pigment on there, so it's almost a pastel-y kind of veil of color that is happening. I'm going to rinse my brush. I'm going to jump to the other side of my present circle, and I'm going to be playing with my yellow in the same way. Yellow is very translucent anyway, but I did add some glazed medium to it. I'm going to do some yellow inside my future circle. So I'm really just scumbling with the hog brush, scumbling my color into my canvas. Let's try some yellow here as well. So I'm really using the white of my board or the white of my paper, like I would in watercolor, to illuminate the bright vibrancy of my color. Because I haven't added any white to any of these colors yet. And now I also like to bring some of the warmer colors that I'm using on the outside into the center, especially via my past circle, because the past is part of us. It's inseparable from us. It's there, and we are reaching towards the future. We are still creating that. So by bringing in some of the warm colors that I use on the outside into the center circle, I'm acknowledging that the past is part of my present, but I'm stepping forward, not backwards. So when you feel you've got your zones kind of figured out, this is where we begin to play with our colors. I'm going to be switching to a phthalo blue now, also with some glazing medium. Now phthalo blue is a really, really powerful pigment, so do be mindful of that. And I'm going to bring some of this phthalo blue into some of these zones. Rinse some of it out because there's way too much on my brush. So just using a wet brush, I'm just blending in these colors. Maybe let's do some here as well. So you can see this is a very meditative process. You'll definitely be able to switch over into your right brain hemisphere and just be present with this, almost like a coloring exercise, and just making sure whatever you're doing, that everything is well rounded, and that we play from intensity of color to translucency of color in a way. So in this way, by using glazes, you can manipulate the undertone that you've already painted with. You can create depth, you can create vibrancy, you can create beautiful values. So you can imagine using the same technique that I'm using here now on a painting. It becomes rich and beautiful, and you can layer these glazes until the cows come home. And that's really what I enjoy in my paintings a lot, is layering my colors and blending them one into the other, creating a beautiful fusion of colors that either contrast or complement. If you want to intensify something, let's play with this magenta here. You can see exactly what I mean by using a glaze to bring out a particular tone. And because I only load the tip of my brush and not the heel of my brush with color, and I keep my brush belly facing away from where I'm working, I sort of can manipulate the paint on the toe of my brush to just remain concentrated in the zone where I want it, and then rinse out and then just dilute the remaining color. So then that creates a beautiful intensity right about where I want it to be. We can also change the color. So for example, if I put magenta over this yellow, it is going to create a beautiful orange. But I'm not losing my yellow entirely. So the one thing about glazes that you have to sort of learn and get in the moment with, if you use too much water or too much glazing gloss medium, then your glaze becomes so translucent and so thin that it's a bit difficult to control. So do be mindful of the water ratio in your brush. And a hog brush, it's hog hair, if you use a real hog brush, can absorb quite a bit of water. So I like to just have a kitchen towel or a rag here on my easel that I can control the amount of water. I'm going to be playing with some zinc white. Now zinc white or Chinese white is a very translucent white, so that is one way to bring in some pastel shades without changing the underneath color at all. So I'm introducing some Chinese white here from the outside, working my way in, creating just a beautiful pastel-y hue there. I'm going to do it with this teal color at the bottom here as well. So in a way I'm suggesting with the lighter color, as I make the colors that exit my canvas a bit lighter and a bit more concentrated towards the spheres, it sort of also helps with that illusion of energy flowing out of these spheres. So I'm using very little color. I'm not using huge amounts of color because my intention is to blend and not to cover up everything underneath. But I'm using the properties of the zinc white to help me do that. I think this zone can do with a bit more vavavoom, so I'm just playing with my orange. I'm going to add a bit of magenta to it. And because we understand the layering capabilities of acrylic paint, we understand that if we dry the whole thing, we can always layer something more on top. I'm going to add a bit of yellow to this section in here, just to demonstrate how you can use one color to liven up something else. Because yellow is so translucent, obviously if it goes over blues and teals and greens, it will enhance that and just make it look more sunny. And also you're just listening to your intuition, you're allowing your right brain to tell you that you are creating something beautiful because you're just playing with the colors. So you can see how you can continue to layer this until you have achieved beautiful contrast. By adding more and more glazes, you intensify more and more of these areas, creating a difference in value. So it's much more rich, vibrant, maybe even darker, more opaque, to very translucent and very soft and very light. I've did this particular section with zinc white. So this is more zinc white moving into the color that I had underneath. So that is a beautiful way to play with your shapes and your spheres until you are entirely happy. I'm gonna add a bit more yellow to this section here because this section feels a bit flat to me. And then when you've reached a stage in your painting, when you feel that you have shifted your vibration, and you will know that by checking in with your emotional and mental state again. We've been busy now for about 45 minutes, and already I can feel a shift in my energy. I'm more in my right brain, I'm more grounded, I'm calmer, there's a lot more clarity around me, and then I might even see areas that I need to soften that I haven't done yet. So when you've reached that stage of your painting, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go back to our black paint and our fine liner, and then we can clarify some of these lines with a black paint that's maybe not so clear. So in a way I call this some grounding, and I just clarify some of these lines by running over them again with my black paint, and I just follow the line like a meditation all the way through until it's off the canvas. You don't have to do it with all your lines, just a few ones that you want to enhance. I basically normally choose the main energetic lines that I drew, the first ones. And I find the most interesting pattern out of all of them. And I just follow along. And that just brings a little bit of clarity into the painting where it is needed. Rinse that really well. I'm quickly going to dry this. So I'm going to mute myself again for a few seconds, because when we come back we are going to do a final stroke of genius on our painting. Right, so the final thing that we're going to do is I'm going to use my fine liner again, and now I'm going to use titanium white. Now titanium white is the white that gives us complete coverage. It is potent, it's very opaque. I did dilute it a bit with some water just to improve the fluidity of my paint. And now what I want you to do, for the first time we're going to draw a line from outside the circle into the circle and out again. So I almost want you to imagine that this is a lightning bolt from your higher self into your present self, and it grounds it into the earth. So again, a very organic kind of line. I do try to make it cross the middle, and all the way down to the bottom of the canvas. So this line represents that connection that is infallible with your higher self, with spirit, with the universe, with whatever you describe the divine energy as. And this beautiful white line is flowing through your sphere of the present moment, right at the nexus of your belief systems that you are aware of, and you're allowing this white light to just completely sever any power and connection that it has to your present life, and you are grounding it into the here and the now, symbolically with this white paint. And sometimes if I feel guided to do so, I will create a new nexus out of which beautiful white lines can flow, and I ground it into the earth so that the energy of healing, of positivity, I am enough, is grounded and planted firmly energetically in my life. And I'm so grateful for that. So that is how you would conclude your neurographic session, by just adding a beautiful white line over all your work. And then this becomes an amulet for you to hang in your studio space or in your journal, something that can be done time and time again. You can add different design elements. Maybe you can do a hamsa, a hand of protection, or a tree of life, or any of those symbols that you feel is empowering to your life. And I'm just going to add my sample board here again. And I'm quickly going to open the floor and just ask how you guys are doing. Did you enjoy this? Do you have any questions? Please feel free to unmute yourself and share with us if you feel so guided.
Is there any, Gideon, it's Lily.
Hi, Lily.
Is there any reason why you chose to make the top of your canvas near the past circle with representing, you know, source or whatever?
Mm-hmm. No,
I'm just wondering.
I just used the diagonal of my canvas to sort of suggest time, so past, present, future. So there wasn't a very big philosophical reason behind that. And then just the white line at the end from the top to the bottom. I'm really just making sure it crosses over this nexus in my present. So symbolically it just says, zap me here and now.
Yeah. And then I also noticed, you know, when you were drawing your lines, you said you wanted them to intersect. You made them kind of intersect in the middle of your present. Was I supposed to do that? I don't know if I did that or not.
Yeah, like I said in the beginning, it's nice when you begin your line work to start in some point of your present moment working outwards. So from there, it sort of naturally causes a crossroad in a way for some of these lines to cross over each other. Because that sort of represents the entanglement that we have with our beliefs and our habits and the unconscious part of us that sometimes trips us up, or can be the saboteur, hi Lily, can be the saboteur in our lives, you know. So that would represent that, you know, it's almost like a knot that happens in our mind, and this work softens that, and energetically we are applying our positive statement almost like an ointment to loosen these knots in our brain hemispheres so that it becomes softer and more fluid. And we're using the color as the therapy to continue to apply this positive, vibrant beauty over this that we started with. And then we finish off with that, knowing that the divine gives us the inspiration, the healing, the aha, the awareness, the catalyst in the moment that brings us that enlightenment and freedom from these limiting beliefs so that we can choose again.
Beautiful. I love the whole thing. I'll show you mine.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun and meditative, and I love all this symbology behind it. And you said it's called neurography?
Neurographic art, yes. So if you Google that, you'll find there's plenty of links. I know there's a beautiful group that I will also share with you guys on Facebook, that the people whose group it is specialize in this kind of work. So it's nice to just check it out as well. And you'll see various different types of how it's applied. It's really unlimited. Once you understand that the Neurographica is all about the softening of your X lines, you know, the application for art and therapy and combining it with other things is limitless. Like I said, the guy that created it is a psychologist and an architect, and his architecture really represents this form of design, rounding things off. There's not a lot of hard corners, so it's more organic to live in his spaces, because he understood that these sharp, hard edges or corners is really difficult and can cause harm. You know what I'm saying? You know what it feels like to walk into your kitchen counter or something like that, you know? So he rounded everything off in his designs, and he understood the psychology behind his designs and the impact that it has on our emotional and mental states. So that's why it's actually trademarked as an energy form that is researchable. You can do training in it, and it's really a beautiful methodology just to bring into your art practice.
Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Thank you, Lily. Everyone else, are you all okay? I would love to see your stuff on the group. Please share. Hashtag Gideonslight, okay?
This was wonderful. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thanks, Gideon. It was kind of emotional writing down like the stuff. Like I used all I had was like a permanent pen, so I could see the words coming out. But I'm glad that we like wrote the other stuff on top of it. And I just want peace in my life, you know.
Absolutely.
And I did get like meditative when I was softening the edges.
That is nice. Hey, it's like you completely quiet down. Just concentrating on that simple task of softening all the hard edges, that's where the magic begins to happen. So you can even do this on a little piece of paper and doodle if you're at the office or in a stressful meeting with someone or whatever. You can tell them, please, I am actively listening. I'm just doodling to be more present. And you can, you know, soften the energy of that entire situation by just doodling on a piece of paper. And your intention is, I'm going to soften all of these hard edges. That's beautiful, Shanti. That's so stunning. Beautiful. Finger snaps for everyone.
Oh, wow. It's dripping, but maybe it's supposed to drip.
Yeah, it's those energy lines are still flowing. Let it flow, let it flow, let it flow. That's what I say.
These inks are really fun. I think you would like them. Because they're like so, the thing I like about them is they're so vibrant in color.
Oh, yes.
And I don't have, it's like, because when I've done watercolor in the past, it seemed like it was kind of more dull, and I like really bright color.
I must definitely try that.
I was like, oh, these are like
On my next splurge, I might invest in some ink.
You can go to Michaels.com. Like if you go to Michaels, you can get 40% off coupons,
Oh,
and you can
cool.
get a set. So that's what I did, and they were like half off.
Fantastic. Well, there you go, girl. You guys, please take photographs, share on our group. It was such fun to spend some time with you. I would have loved to do even more, but our time is limited. So I'll post photographs of both of these images for you, and maybe some of the work I've done in the past with Neurographica, and also the link that I told you guys about. Yes, Lily.
Gideon, can I get you to just tell me, outline the steps really quick?
Yes.
Because I was painting, I didn't get a chance to write it down.
Absolutely. Okay, so just recap for you guys. Step 1, just use your board and just become really present with whatever feelings, emotions, trauma, or things that has come up for you recently that you want to deal with. And then when you've put those words that describe those feelings or intentions or limiting beliefs or whatever the case may be, then really try to summarize what positive words would counteract that, or what would bring balance to it. So if there was a lot of fear in your statements, maybe choose something like love. In my case, it was a lot of things like, not good enough, whatever the case may be. So my mantra was, I am enough, I am worthy. Then what we do is we use the compass just to create this 3 spheres. The biggest sphere in the middle is the present. One that half covers it is the past, and then one separate from it is the future. And then we begin by really connecting with those emotions in the present sphere, the biggest one, right in the center or just off center, and begin your line work from the center outwards, doing organic lines that maybe represents lightning bolts or roots or anything like that. So try to be a bit random. And as you draw these black lines, it's really that energy of the limiting beliefs or the fears that you are holding, any emotions you're dealing with, and you are emitting it out. You are releasing it from your present sphere out into the universe. And when you feel intuitively that you've got enough lines, that you've given some expression to those feelings, then you begin to play with your present sphere and you start to introduce color, and you work your way out in that fashion. And the colors you use is really the positive colors that you feel good about. It's like applying ointment to those limiting beliefs. You're beginning to heal it. And when you've
we rounded the corners.
Yes, you're right. Thank you. Yes, you are very right. Before we play with color, thanks for reminding me. We rounded off the hard edges. That's the most important bit. Thanks for reminding me, Lily. Yes, so before we start coloring in, we're using the black paint to round off any area where the 2 lines cross over each other. So that's quite a hard edge. So we just use our paint or our markers to create a bit of a U shape. So all the edges are rounded off. And in that energy, we basically repeat our mantra or a positive statement to begin to unknot that very tight, aggressive, confrontational lines where they cross. Then we begin to introduce color, and really we played with color here as washes of color. So we used a lot of water, or we used a gel medium or a glazing medium, an acrylic medium to dilute our paint with, which helps with the paint adhering to the canvas. And then once we are happy with the color and we've played with blending and infusing and glazing until the cows come home, then we use white titanium representing the divine energy, and we let that lightning bolt come from the top through the middle and ground into the earth. And that symbolizes that we are now severing any unconscious habits or patterns that tend to bring us into that negative space. It is now healed, it is done, and that is the end